Hello, welcome back to Client Stories with DNAngels. My name is Heidi, and I'm going to share with you a story that is still kind of unfolding. I got messages this morning, and I said, I've got to pop on and tell y'all my client story. If I was to name the story, I would name the story, I just wouldn't have seen that coming. So my client, there's a whole cast of characters in the story, and I'm going to have to give each one a name. And it can be confusing, so I'm going to really try to slow down at those, explaining the DNA part to help you understand. So I'm going to call my client Carrie, and a little bit about her backstory. She was raised by her grandparents. Her mother passed away 18 years ago. And her sister are very much into genealogy, and they decided to take a DNA test for fun. But when they got the results back, they were only half sisters. And it was clear that my client, Carrie, was the one that had a different father than what she had expected. Her matches weren't great, so she was just, really at a loss. So she came across the DNAngels on TikTok, I believe, and we were able to take on her case, even though she didn't have the best matches. Get to work on her case. And I look and I'm like, wow, I did the sort, and I could see that one grandparent was going to be from Germany. And I looked at her ethnicity, and she was 31% German. And that sort showed me that she did have some matches from Germany, but they were distant and they didn't have very many trees. So I just kind of filed that into the back of my brain that she was going to have a German grandparent. So I didn't know at that point if it was grandma or grandpa. I just knew that it was going to be one of her grandparents was from Germany. So I get to work on the side that's more doable. Well, that's even distant, working in the low 100s centimorgans. But I got lucky because there were some great trees in her DNA matches, and I was able to figure out who her great-grandparents were. Now, her great-grandparents had 3 sons. The first son, I found his obituary, and he didn't have any children. The second son, he just didn't fit the mold, and A, he didn't have a German wife, and B, he wasn't at the right place in the country. My client is from Texas. And then the third, the youngest son, did go off to Germany for war, found him a bride, brought her back home to Texas. So when I saw that, I said, bingo, I've got grandpa now and I've got grandma. Now, they had 2 sons. This is where I need to start giving some names. So I'm going to call one son John, and I'm going to call the second son Billy. I know either John or Billy is going to be her biological father. Now, Billy had passed away in 2023, and he passed away of liver failure. And I did all this by Facebook, figured this out all by Facebook researching. So the other brother was still alive, John. John is still alive in Texas, married, well. So I told her, one of the 2 is going to be your biological father. In order to narrow down which one it is, we're either going to need Billy's children, one of his children, to take a DNA test, or we need John or one of his children to take a DNA test, because I can get you as close as grandparents. But in order to narrow it down, I'm going to need more DNA. So I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I had seen that Carrie had added a Mitzi, a person I didn't know who she was, had added Mitzi into the client room. And I thought, man, that name sounds familiar. Let me see if I can remember who she was. Well, then I remembered, oh, that's John's wife. John is married to a Mitzi. So I just said, hi, Mitzi. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'll be honest with you, she came in kind of rough. She came in and she said to me, I don't know how you can be so precise with saying that Carrie's grandparents are, this couple, and get it as close as to one of their children is Carrie's biological father. So she was not believing, and her exact words were, you don't have the DNA to prove this with only third and fourth cousins. Now, I was like, actually, I didn't just pull these names out of the thin air. I did work with the DNA. There is science behind this. But, you know, you get a lot further with honey than you do vinegar. So I was very, very nice. And I said, let me explain. I understand from your point of view. It's actually a great question. It's a question that we get asked commonly. Let me explain it to you. So I really took the time to break down the top DNA matches, even though they weren't close. I was able to explain it to her with screenshots. Pictures go really far when trying to explain. You know, even when we tell the story, if we could have a graph behind us, that would make it easier for you to understand. But I was able to explain it to her, and she softened. She got more accepting. And so Billy has a son named Michael. And Michael looks a lot like my client, Carrie. So during this conversation between me, Mitzi, and Carrie, we're leaning towards Billy being the father. And the reason being is that Mitzi shared with us that he and his ex-wife, prior to Mitzi, had problems conceiving. And he had to have a surgical procedure in order for him and his ex-wife to have children. And so with the fertility issue, also, you know, and this was probably wrong for my brain to go here, but with Carrie's mom not being actively in her life and being raised by her grandparents, and then I just felt like it was going to be Billy. And I think we all did, actually. And so Mitzi said, you know what? The grandfather would have been so happy to hear all of this, because he'd spent years on genealogy and building a beautiful family tree. This is before pre-internet. He was writing relatives, asking, you know, for family information. He was sending off for birth certificates. Like, he really put a lot of time into their family tree. So Mitzi said, you know, he would just, Papa, call him Papa. Papa would just absolutely love this. You know what? I'm going to order an ancestry DNA test for John today. I want to get down to the bottom of this. I'm curious now. And also Billy's son, Michael, right away agreed. I'll take a DNA test too. Actually, it was the day before Thanksgiving. This conversation's taking place. So DNA tests are sent off. I go to work on my other cases. And then probably about a week ago, I get a message from Carrie saying that she got back Michael's ancestry DNA results. Now, Michael is Billy's son. And it came back as a second cousin. She sends me a screenshot, and she says, the ancestry says he's my second cousin. Well, she matched Michael at 638 centimorgans. That is not a second cousin. And so I explained to her that Ancestry does a prediction, and usually their prediction is wrong, which confuses a lot of people. But 638 centimorgans does come in the right parameter to be a first cousin. And so I'm sure at that point, Mitzi's in the room still too. And Mitzi's probably like, well, if it's not Billy, then it must be my husband. But I learned out later from Carrie that their mind went to, well, maybe there was another brother that they didn't know about. And so like, they're not believing me. At this point, they think that I'm wrong. So this morning, I get a message from Carrie in the client room, and she says, DNA results are back. John is my father. And I'm seeing Mitzi reading this, and she's not commenting. So I'm like, oh, I gotta know, because we were thinking it was gonna be Billy, remember? I never saw this coming. So it turned out her husband was the father. So I privately privately in a separate conversation, messaged Carrie, and I said, tell me, have you been received? How is it going? And she says, actually, it's going well. That her and John had a phone conversation yesterday, and he does not remember her mother at all, but they were able to realize that John and her mother only lived about a mile away from each other during the time that she was conceived. And we're just assuming that her mom's pretty fertile because she just took one time and she got pregnant. So I don't know about those fertility issues. I don't know what happened there, but that just led me down and Mitzi down. You know, now that I'm wondering now, thinking back, if John hadn't had that fertility issues, would she had still given him the test? Because she was pretty sure he wasn't going to come back the father. It doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, the good news is that Carrie and John are building a relationship. They're both in Texas. Even though John is shocked, he's willing, and he's going to accept her as his daughter, and hopefully they'll meet, and hopefully I'll be able to see pictures and all the good stuff that comes with being able to help people solve their biological mysteries. So I haven't thought about what hearts we're gonna leave here. Let's do the purple heart. You know, purple is one of our brand colors for DNA Angels. If you enjoyed the story, please leave that purple heart in the comments and let Carrie know that you're supportive of her. I am not going to be giving you any client stories in the next couple of weeks. I am going on vacation, and I'm going to be warm in the tropics and get my feet in the sand and just be looking over the crystal blue waters. I cannot wait. I'll see you next time. Bye.